Hey guys, back with another video, and this is not going to be a game-related video. My top 10 movies of 2014. A bit late, we're almost in February now. But with the Oscars coming up, and I don't know, I wanted to do, I did this last year, and I don't know, I like doing this. I do like talking about movies. I'm not as good at talking about movies as I am with video games, so I might get, like, this might become a bit rambling or whatever. Um, so I apologize if it becomes that way, and I'm gonna try to keep things brief when I talk about these because I'm just not great at talking about movies. Even though I love movies, I watch a ton of movies, and I always I don't know. I'm a big movie guy. It's like my second big interest. Well, okay, maybe my third big interest. But yeah, I guess first I'll jump right into the top 10. My favorite movies. Obviously, I haven't seen every movie that came out. Only movies that I was interested in. There's a lot of movies that I know a lot of people love that are missing from this list. I'll talk about like honorable mentions, dishonorable mentions, things like that at the end of the video. But I thought I'd just jump straight into things with my list. Um, with number 10. And that's the Grand Budapest Hotel, which this is kind of a shocker for me because this is a Wes Anderson film, and I gotta say, I'm just not into his style. It's just not for me. I've watched all of his movies and I've enjoyed one of them, and that's the Darjeeling. Was it the Darjeeling Limited? I think that's what it's called. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I actually really enjoyed that. And it's actually like I think that's the movie that Wes Anderson fans hate the most out of his movies. Um, I think it's like it wasn't well received when it came out, from what I can remember. And then The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou had its moments, but every other movie he's done, I've just either hated it or just plain didn't like it. Like the Royal Tenenbaums, I fucking hated that movie. I know I'm gonna get some hate here. This video, I might get some hate because I tend to be a bit more controversial with movies. Um, but yeah, it's just his style is just not for me. But for some strange reason, his like quirky, offbeat style worked for me in this movie, and it had an emotional element that I was not expecting. Like the ending of this movie really caught me off guard. It's funny. It's got fantastic performances. Of course, it looks fantastic. I mean, you might be like me and might not like Wes Anderson's style, but his movies are gorgeous to look at for sure. They're well directed. They're well made movies. It's just his style is just not for me. But I don't know. I found myself really into this one. I really enjoyed this movie. I can't say too much about it because again, with a lot of these movies, if you haven't seen them, I don't really want to spoil them for you. But um, yeah, definitely a really vibrant, colorful, funny movie with that's thoughtful as well, and it grabbed me emotionally, which no other Wes Anderson film has done. So yeah, that makes number 10 on my list. At number 9 is Kill the Messenger. I feel like this film just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know too many people that have actually seen this. It's based on a true story that I find really fascinating and that I had heard about, but I didn't know too many details. And it's about the reporter Gary Webb, who in like the late '90s, kind of uncovered like the CIA kind of importing cocaine into the U.S. And the look reading about Gary Webb and kind of like details of the story after I saw the movie. The movie has some factual inaccuracies for sure, but I think the story is just so fascinating that I really got into this movie. And Jeremy Renner who plays Gary Webb in this, gives a really amazing performance. It's the movie's got just a really like high paced energy to it. It's well written, and it kind of blows my mind that like a report came out from like the CIA basically showing that there was indeed truth to the whole matter. And I don't want to spoil too much for those that don't know like all like the whole story here, but it's incredibly fascinating but angering at the same time, especially once you find out you know about this guy's life and what happened to him. So I want to be a bit. I don't really want to talk too much about this movie, but it's incredibly fascinating. It's angering. Like I said, it's well written, well acted. And I don't know too many people that have seen it. It again, like I said, there's some factual inaccuracies. And it's a bit slow paced. But I think I probably will enjoy this movie more than a lot of people just because I find the true story just really fascinating. But yeah, Kill the Messenger definitely one of a nice surprise in 2014, and definitely if you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out. Highly recommended. At number eight is Foxcatcher, and this is another movie based on a true story that I knew nothing about. Like I was purposely avoiding reading the true story behind this film because the trailers. I loved the trailers for this film. Um, and I'm not going to say anything. And it is a movie that if you know the true story, you might not find the movie as engaging. But because I didn't know anything about the true story, I was extremely engaged with this movie, and I think it's a really excellent movie, even if you know if even if you do know the true story because of the performances. Like Steve Carell, his performance in this, obviously known for comedic roles, but his performance in this is absolutely amazing. Channing Tatum, which I mean, I kind of hate the guy honestly, but I've changed my mind on him actually after this film because I mean, based on this, he can act, which I had my doubts. I mean, the characters are just really. I mean, this is definitely a character movie, a performance-driven movie, a dialogue-driven movie. It's slow paced, and I think some people won't be able to get over the slow pace, but I love the atmosphere to this film. It's very dark, foreboding, and there's one scene in this movie that is probably my favorite scene in any movie this year. That has to do with an interview in front of a camera. That's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil it. And with Mark Ruffalo, who again in this movie gives a fantastic performance. Um, but yeah, this movie just has this really dark edge to it, which I love. I mean, this is the kind of movie that, right, based on the trailers, I knew was going to be my type of movie. I really get into this shit, and of course, being based on a true story is icing on the cake, really. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I really loved it. At number seven is The Imitation Game, another movie based on a true story. You're starting to see a pattern here. I really dig movies that are based on real events. Of course, this movie's got a lot of awards buzz, and actually I was going into it expecting like an awards baity type movie, and to an extent it is, but I really got wrapped up in this, and I think this movie works almost because of Benedict Cumberbatch. His performance in this movie is absolutely amazing, especially towards the end. And this is a very tragic movie. And again, this is a movie where, of course, I knew about cracking the Enigma code and the whole I kind of knew about the true story here, but I didn't know too many details. Reading about it afterwards, one of the complaints I do have with this movie, they make up a lot of shit for dramatic effect, which it really bugs me when movies do that. And this movie's definitely guilty of that. And it felt kind of detached from the war. I felt a lot of the time. But I don't know. It is an engaging movie. It's extremely well written. It's very funny. I actually laughed quite a bit through it, and yeah, again, Benedict Cumberbatch gives an amazing performance, and like the last like 30 minutes of this movie, I thought was like incredibly sad. And if it wasn't for his performance, I don't think I would have liked this movie near as much. So I mean, it's one of those movies that I can definitely see its flaws, and it is a bit awards baity. Um, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I was just so blown away by the performance, and I just the character, the lead character is, I think, really fascinating. And it's one of those. It's also a feel good movie as well, even though it is also quite sad at times. A really great soundtrack too on this one. Yeah, definitely. I definitely highly recommend this one. At number six is Edge of Tomorrow. Now, this was a big surprise for me. Based on the trailers, it looked like a generic, actually not really generic, but it looked like a ripoff of Groundhog Day. Big budget, effects driven movie that I really am not into. It's starring Tom Cruise, which I'm really not a big Tom Cruise guy. I don't know. Like he was great in Magnolia, but other than that, I don't know. I've never really been a big fan of him. But Yeah, this movie really caught me off guard. For one, it's actually smart. It's a big blockbuster movie that's actually smart. It's clever. It's funny. And I really got invested in the story. I really cared about these characters and how it was all going to end up. It does take inspiration from Groundhog Day. Obviously, it's not the most original movie out there in that regard, but they take that concept and kind of go to interesting places with it. Go to neat new directions. It's it had some great action scenes, of course. Even though I'm not really big on like action scenes in movies. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I generally find like action scenes or just scenes of like violence in movies and just explosions and shit like that. Like I find that shit actually pretty boring. Give me like a long ass scene involving two characters talking to each other. I'll take that any day over like a scene with just tons of explosions and things fighting each other. But yeah, which I again like this was just such a big surprise to me, and it didn't make all that much money, unfortunately. Which I'm kind of surprised it didn't, but it's a bit of a shame because in terms of like a big blockbuster sci-fi action movie, this yeah, it's really great. At number five is The Guest. Now, this is my pick for the most underrated movie of 2014. I don't know anyone that's seen this movie or even heard of it. It's done by the director of Your Next, which came out last year, I think, which was kind of a horror film that was pretty unique. And this, I think, is better. It's not really a horror movie. The basic gist is that this family lost their son to I believe it's the Iraq War. It is set in modern day, and they have a house. They get a knock on the door, and it's this guy that claims to have known their son, and he stays there for a while. And well, that's all I'm gonna say. It's this movie that constantly surprises you. It's got this '80s style to it. You could tell they were going for like an '80s throwback kind of movie. This is something that you would have seen back in the '80s. It's got like this really great '80s soundtrack that maybe some people might find a bit cheesy. I thought it fit the movie perfectly. It's terrifying. It's funny. It's clever. It's the lead performance. The actor by the name of Dan Stevens. I guess he's in Downtown Abbey. That I don't know. That show looks like garbage, but it almost makes me want to watch it just purely because of this guy. Because man, he gives an amazing performance. It's just a really fun movie. It's a slick movie. It's great to look at, and it's always surprising. It's always keeping you on your toes. Yeah, again, like I don't want to say too much about this movie, but go out and see it. It might be on Netflix or something. I don't know. If just find a way to see this movie. Like this guy, the guy that did Your Next and now this, he's two for two. Like this is two movies. These are two movies now that I absolutely fucking love. So yeah, definitely check out The Guest. At number four is Snowpiercer. This is another movie that just came out of nowhere. It was earlier in the year that I watched this. It did come out earlier in the year, which is a shame because I think some people have probably forgotten about it. Now, this was an incredibly unique sci-fi action movie. Very dark, very gritty. It's got some issues. I can see people not liking this. You really have to suspend. You have to go into this not thinking too much. As soon as you start really thinking about the plot and a lot of like the technical aspects, the movie will probably anger you. It's one of those movies you really have to just go along for the ride, and it's just a really fun movie. It's inventive. It's filled with like these amazing action sequences that just completely blew me away. Some really solid performances done by a Korean director. I believe he did The Host, which is a movie I haven't seen. But this is like his first like American movie done in America. It's basically about this train that goes around the world, and it like the population on the planet is gone, and the entire world's population is on this train, this like steam engine train. And the poor citizens are kind of at the back of the train, whereas like the richer citizens are at the front of the train. So it's got that kind of thing going on. I mean, its messages are, they're not exactly subtle, but it's just a really entertaining movie, and filled with all these really cool twists. Like this kind of sci-fi, I really get into, uh, where it's filled with so many ideas. Some of them don't quite work, but some of them really do. I really appreciated that. Again, I don't think this movie is going to be for everyone, and again, it's a movie I don't think you should really think too much while you're watching it, but definitely a really enjoyable movie that just really came out of nowhere for me. At number three is Nightcrawler. Fucking loved this movie. Jake Gyllenhaal gives a fantastic performance. Uh, Blows my mind that he wasn't nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars, but what can you do? Uh, this was a really slick movie, and it has the best dialogue, I think, in a movie I've seen all year. The dialogue in this movie, I loved all of it. Just the conversations characters have with each other, like it's just really sharp, witty dialogue that I don't know. I fucking love the dialogue. It's a very dark movie. It's got like this great look to it. It's got this like grungy. It's just, oh man, like the cinematography is fantastic in this movie. Obviously, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he films like crime like accidents and things like that, like really brutal accidents, and sells the footage to like news stations. And his character is utterly fascinating. It's a character that I think a lot of people are going to hate. This is it's the kind of character you, well, I guess you can see this character in a lot of movies, but never as the lead. And I thought that was a breath of fresh air. I can see maybe some people finding the ending to be a bit angering too. I loved it. In fact, like I loved every second of this movie. It's even got like some car chases that are extremely well done. That are really intense and awesome. And like some of the scenes later are like those kind of like edge of your seat scenes that you want to look away, like you can't even watch the screen because it's just so yeah, but man, I definitely highly recommend this movie. I knew I was gonna like this movie. I think, I mean, it got rave reviews, and the trailers were great. It looked right up my alley, so it wasn't a big surprise that I enjoyed it so much. But yeah, I definitely go out and see Nightcrawler. All right, getting into the top two with number two, and that's Birdman. This is an incredible film. It got a lot of great reviews. It has a chance of getting Best Picture at the Oscars, and I hope it does. I really hope it does. Well, okay, I hope my number one movie does, but this was incredible. You know, it's kind of your midlife crisis movie, but it's so much more than that. This is an extremely unique movie. There's so many things I could talk about here. Obviously, one of the big things is it has the illusion of being shot in one giant take. And it's generally shot in like a singular location. I mean, the main thing, Michael Keaton gives an outstanding performance here. Uh, like just the range of emotions that you go through and he goes through is absolutely astounding. He's trying to set up this Broadway play. He's a washed up actor known for like this Birdman character, these superhero movies. So it's got that kind of meta type thing going on there. And it's just extremely fascinating. The characters are absolutely incredible. The dialogue is very well written. I was surprised at how funny this movie is. This movie made me laugh more than any comedy I watched in 2014. Like I watched some really shitty comedies, and this is funnier than all of them. And this is like kind of like a drama, really. Like Edward Norton is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. He's hilarious, but at the same time, that character is really fascinating. Emma Stone's in this movie too. She's fantastic. Like the acting across the board is just incredible. It's one of those movies that when I saw the trailer, going into it, I wasn't sure I was gonna like it. It seemed like one of those movies that was gonna be like this overhyped, pretentious movie, but it's not at all. It's super engaging. Like I was never bored. There's not a boring second, and it's got a really interesting ending that I can see some people getting not liking too much, but the more I've kind of thought about it and the more I've kind of reflected on it, I actually really like the ending. And this is a movie I plan to see many more times. It's definitely one of those movies that is going to be rewatchable for me. Yeah, I hope Michael Keaton wins Best Actor for this too. It's tough. I mean, the Best Actor is a bit of a it's a like that's a contested category, but again, I don't want to say too much more on this movie. The hype is justified for this movie. All the good things people have been saying about it. It really is a fantastic movie. The cinematography is excellent too. I mean, this movie is just top notch in pretty much every aspect. Yeah, definitely check out Birdman. And finally, number one, my favorite movie of 2014, Whiplash. Now, oh, this movie, man. This would this would make my top 20 favorite movies of all time. Now, okay, this movie I wanted to see immediately when I heard about it. It's okay. It speaks to me probably more than some people. It's about this young jazz drummer in a music school who wants to be who wants to be the best jazz drummer he can be. He wants to be one of the greats. And he's in this music school, and he kind of he gets a new teacher. J.K. Simmons plays this new teacher, and this is a very intense teacher. You might have seen the trailers. Go watch a trailer of Whiplash, because I don't want to say more than that. But yeah, it's a drumming movie, and I play the drums. So this, yeah, I knew I had to see this. So this was an extremely inspiring movie to me. In fact, ever since watching this movie, I've been playing drums more than I ever have. It really does inspire. It's an inspiring movie, but you can replace the drums with anything, I think, and still get a lot out of this movie. You don't have to admire drums or jazz music. Luckily, too, I like jazz music as well, so I was into that part of the film. This is just an incredibly intense movie. I can't even describe the feeling I had watching this movie. It blew me the fuck away. J.K. Simmons gives an incredible performance. The anger he has, but at the same time, there's a lot of depth to his character as well. Miles Teller, which I've actually never been a fan of at all, he's fantastic in this, and he did all his own drumming. He's pretty damn good. I mean, the drumming is fantastic in this movie too, and I loved all the things. Like, if you know a bit about music and drumming in particular, a lot of this stuff in this movie just made me laugh. Oh, you're dragging a bit. You're dragging a bit off tempo. Not my tempo. Not quite my tempo. Like that kind of the dialogue in this movie it was really great. I Oh man, I mean, there's a lot I could say. I still have to talk about honorable mentions and things like that. But I mean, the performances, the editing. I have to mention the editing. The best editing I've seen in a movie all year. Really snappy, really unique, and really fits this movie. Like I said before, super intense. A great music in the movie as well. It's yeah, it's fantastic. It really spoke to me. So admittedly, I probably enjoy this movie more than a lot of people, though I know quite a few people. Mike Aerodynamish, Paige Femtrooper, they really love this movie too. Danny Devil May Pie loved it as well. I mean, anyone I know that has seen this movie came out absolutely blown away. So, yeah, this gets the highest recommendation from me, and is easily my favorite movie of 2014. So yeah, guys, that's my top 10. So now let's talk about some of the other movies I watched through the year. This video could actually be maybe upwards of an hour long, so if you want to stop watching, that's fine with me. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the more disappointing movies. There's actually not too many. I generally, if a movie looks bad to me or I'm not interested, I won't watch it. So I generally avoid some disappointing movies. Okay, the two worst movies I saw this year, there's two movies I stopped watching midway through. The first one is Frank, which got good reviews, but it's that movie was just pretentious hipster garbage. I hated that movie. And then Under the Skin, which again is pretentious hipster garbage, where nothing fucking happens in that movie. There's not even any dialogue. I really don't like those kind of movies that are all style over substance. I mean, it's a cool looking film, I guess, but there's nothing to it. I don't know, those kind of movies are just not my thing. I got halfway through that movie and just gave up. there's two movies that I'll put on like the disappointing list. One of them really kind of hurts a bit, and that's Inherent Vice, the new Paul Thomas Anderson film. Now, this is a movie I think I need to see a few more times. It's actually probably his worst reviewed movie so far. And I think the problem I have with this movie is because it's based on this book that's known to be extremely confusing, and it's pretty much a direct adaptation of the book. And yeah, this movie is confusing as fuck. I don't know how anyone could watch this movie for the first time and explain everything that happened and know exactly what happened in this movie. It really feels like you're high watching this movie. I mean, it's got some entertaining elements, and it's not a bad movie. Like the performances are fantastic. It's got a great '70s style to it. I love the soundtrack, but it's a bit of a mess. And I don't know. I found myself not caring about the characters all that much, and what was going to happen to them. So, as a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan, I got to admit, based on the first viewing, I came away disappointed with Inherent Vice. It is a movie though that I'm going to watch a few more times. Like The Master, the first time I saw that, I wasn't blown away by it, but I appreciate it more after watching it a few more times. The other disappointment for me was Interstellar, which this movie, the more I think about it, the more I hate it. Because, okay, like the first 2 quarters of this movie were fantastic. I was loving this movie for like the first 2 acts. Like really interesting, hard sci-fi, some it just had all these cool original ideas. I loved the robot. What was his name? Stars, I think. That was a really cool robot design. Again, I better try not to spoil things here for those that haven't seen the movie. But the third act completely ruined the movie for me, where it basically devolves into silly nonsense where all the hard sci-fi is thrown out the window to beat you over the head with this stupid-ass message and theme, and it gets so fucking goofy and cheesy. It's one of those things that the more I think about it, it gets sillier and sillier the more I think about it. It really is disappointing how that third act just ruined the entire movie for me, and so far, like, in fact, so much so that I honestly think the movie's kind of bad because of it. And I know a lot of people did actually like Interstellar. I'm sorry. It's just that third act just I hated it. I absolutely hated it. There's a turning point in that movie. I think most people will know what I'm talking about. When Matthew McConaughey enters something. That's all I'll say. And that man, just I really disappointing how that movie just completely went to the shitter. Which is a shame. If that third act was a bit different, actually a lot different, completely changed for that matter, I think that movie could have been like a masterpiece for me. But yeah, for now, probably my least favorite Christopher Nolan film. I really hate saying that because I love his films, but Interstellar just did not work for me. But yeah, let's quickly go through the rest here. Big Eyes, a Tim Burton film that actually wasn't bad. I actually really enjoyed that. Selma, that was awards bait, pure and simple. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I don't know. It was really slow and just again, it's showing me a bunch of things I already know, basically. John Wick was a really kick-ass revenge movie, which had like the best motive for revenge ever I can think of in a movie. Which some people might laugh at that. Saint Vincent was a surprising movie for me. A Bill Murray movie. It gets a bit too sentimental for my tastes towards the end, but still enjoyable, still really funny. A Most Violent Year I thought was really good. Maybe I think a lot of people might find it a bit too slow paced, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty engaging and different, very different. And it had a great style to it. Unbroken I actually liked a lot more than I thought I would. It's it's your standard biopic type stuff, but I didn't know too much about that true story, so some of the shit in that movie blew my mind. Actually, I was like watching that, I was like, this actually fucking happened? Like what? But yeah, that was a surprising movie for me. I was like, it didn't get the greatest reviews, but I actually enjoyed it. Gone Girl was actually another bit of a disappointment for me. I love David Fincher. I love his films, but that, I don't know, like the dialogue just felt really unnatural to me in that movie. Like there's so many explanations too, and I don't know. The ending was horrendous. I hated the ending. Still has a great atmosphere, and the soundtrack is fucking incredible. It's almost worth watching that movie just for the soundtrack. And I still like the movie. I still like Gone Girl. But I don't know. It's a bit of a disappointment for me, unfortunately. Um, Boyhood. That's an overrated one. That's probably actually going to win Best Picture, which would fucking suck. I really liked like the first half, and in fact, I like more like it's a cool concept. Don't get me wrong. I love the concept being filmed over 12 years and seeing these characters actually grow. I loved like Ethan Hawke's character and Patricia Arquette's character, like the parents. But the kid just grew up to be a fucking I don't know. I hate how what he grew up to become. He basically became Richard Linklater. Basically, I don't know. Like the second half of that movie, just I don't know, didn't really work for me. Um, and I don't know, the dialogue just completely went down the shitter for me too. Um, the Raid 2 is a kick-ass action movie. The story is absolute garbage, and they focus way too much on it. But some of the action scenes in that movie are absolutely fucking brutal, which I loved. The Lego Movie was okay, I guess. I get like I'm not really into like these animated kids movies, but as far as animated kids movies go, that it's a pretty good one. It's very high energy, but I don't know. I wasn't as blown away by it as a lot of people were. Um, the Rover, and probably not too many people have heard about that. That was a good movie. Looking down, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. A lot of people really loved this movie. I liked it. I actually preferred Rise of the Planet of the Apes, to be honest. I don't know, like the human characters in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I thought were really lacking. Uh, the Maze Runner was actually a pretty good like movie. I wasn't expecting to like that at all, but I don't know. It was pretty original. The ending I hated, but I don't know. Most of that movie was pretty good. The Theory of Everything was basically awards bait. Eddie Redmayne, like he gave a fantastic performance, but other than that, that movie, everything about it screams awards bait. But I mean, it's not bad. I don't know. Fury was a pretty good war movie. It didn't blow me away or anything like that, but it was solid. Blue Ruin. Not a lot of people have probably heard about this movie. A very low budget revenge movie, but actually pretty cool because it's this guy that wants to take revenge, but he's completely terrible at it, which I thought that was kind of an interesting hook. And then finally, Startup, which is like a UK prison drama that I really enjoyed. Although enjoyed might not be the right word. That movie is really brutal and tough to watch at times, like a lot of prison dramas. But it's a good one. Um, but no animated films on my list. This is a bit of a weird opinion, probably, but it's not really opinion. I can't get into animated movies. I don't know what it is. It's just, I don't know. It's just something about animated movies. I just can't quite connect with them or get into them. It's weird. Um, Obviously, no comic book movies made the list. I'm not. I've said this before. I'm not into comic book movies. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I did see that because the hype was too strong to ignore, and it was all right. I don't know. I don't know. Comic book movies just don't do much for me. I'm probably missing like some of the big awards movies. I'm missing too, like Still Alice, Wild, um, probably some others that I'm just not interested in those. Generally, if I haven't talked about it up until now, I'm probably just not interested. But let me know. Foreign films, I do wish I would have seen more foreign films. It's just a bit hard. I just don't have exposure to them living in North America. I don't get much exposure to them other than like the big awards ones. And I did see Leviathan, which was a Russian film, which was pretty good. It didn't blow me away or anything, but that was a pretty good one. But I looked at like the other like best picture or not best picture, like the best foreign film nominations for like the Oscars, and I don't know, none of those really interested me, unfortunately. But I don't know. I'm sure there's probably some great movies that I missed out on, but let me know what some of your guys' favorites were. But yeah, that about covers it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.